Thank you. No, I don't even know, but it was a juice bar fast for $96. It's a 2-day fast, but enough bottles are in there to last you a week. Of course, if you're gonna ask, you might as well do it with a juice bar fast, Netcure or something like that. Cost you $96. Seemed well kept here, but this area right here, which is off of Technology, is a very interesting kind of area, if you know what I mean. But anyway, they got a food truck and everything, as you can see, and it's basically like a, well, not too far from the apartments, but that's what it looks like. But you know, I mean, dude, this is still playing here. So, this old folk band called Metallica. They started off with string instruments and then went into electric. Well, I consider them folk, but a lot of people consider them metal. Some hard metal. I can't really tell. I'm up in the air on fence sitting. Good guys, bad guys, of course, are out there. I think it's all isolated incidents. There's fire involved. Don't know exactly. In this case, you're going to have Antifa on one side and right alt on the other, like extreme cases. And Antifa is an extreme case, right alt is another extreme case. Of course, right now Antifa is pretty dangerous because of piss bombs, because they use piss bombs. And trust me, with a virus going on, any police officer would rather be hit with tear gas rather than a piss bomb. Piss bomb is very dangerous right now and could be a deadly throw. A deadly thing, you know, and they're known to use what's called piss bombs. Going with another folk band that went electric. But you know, I don't know. You know, a lot of stuff is going on. I mean, it's safe to be indoors, but isolation is kind of, a lot of people are kind of going in that direction. There are people I've talked to that are choosing not even to protest right now because of the danger. And there's also issues with mass gatherings. It's a dangerous, dangerous time. It's not the same as the LA riots. It's not the same as the 60s. Because when people get together very close and they're protesting like that, you know, a lot of them are using safety gear, as in masks and stuff like that. So you can't even really tell, you know, if you're going to point fingers at Antifa or even right alt. You could probably tell right alt a bit more than you could probably tell Antifa, because Antifa uses major disguise. They use disguise tactics. I studied some of the things. They use, you know, crowd patrol, or it's a weird sense of crowd patrol, because I think when they run off, I don't know if they spread out or stick together. They use some kind of confusing tactic whenever they are spotted. they attack and then run in a real weird way. It's kind of like, I think they feel it's better to be in numbers, so they use disguise, because if they're isolated, the police can hunt them down and then tackle them. So a lot of these people that are being tackled, that are isolated, that's not an Antifa move. That's actually just a protester move on someone on their own protesting as solo. So they can be hit up a little easier, or they can be hit up easier by the police because they're on solo. Antifa is probably going to run in a group where they mix in, and they can't, without reviewing video and things like that, they can't really find out who did what they did, and also they'll look almost exactly the same. So it's like going after body form and shape, of one person. You couldn't tell because they're going to hit in a number, and they're going to look very similar as a group. I've studied some of these things. Right alt, of course, they're going to be kind of like more noticeable on things. And it seems in the case that we know from the study of YouTube, if you study a lot of YouTube posts, you can find out who the aggressor is and who is the defender. Like I said, it's all isolated cases, and you can put them in a political or a group of people and then judge from there. And that's also going to be a bias judge, meaning it's going to be a bias accusation or a bias opinion, meaning the person that's judging the other is going to be a person that represents that political party, meaning it's going to be a bias kind of thing. Prejudice kind of choice. So, I mean, as an actor and filmmaker and poet and musician and writer and reporter, it's kind of in a way, and filmmaker, of course, it's going to be kind of, you're going to have to kind of sit in the middle and see the humanity on both sides, because there's a history to a person's political organization. So they've come from somewhere to be in that political organization, whether it be in one extreme or the other, which way. Everybody in a political party wants to know the other person's political choice. But first of all, as an actor, you have to see both sides of anything, or you can't really portray that character or that way of thought or that person, let's say, well, if you're taking a biased opinion on them. I was taught also as a director, because I was trained by someone that worked with Grotowski and also other directors. And I've had some film schooling from NYU when I just did visitation, and also film schooling from the New School of Social Research, and also from Texas Wesleyan University of North Texas, which is a music school. But film, especially storytelling, it's best to always kind of see both sides of the situation. And as a director especially, you cannot cast moral opinion, or you cannot cast moral judgment. Call someone scrupulous or something like that. You can't say that this person has no moral judgment, because you don't know where they're coming from. And we look back all the way from the 1960s, we can see that this protest that's been going on has been going on because of social circumstance from economic point of view, and also circumstance from treatment. I think the argument is you can only be treated a certain way for so long, and that goes for everybody. It doesn't go for just one particular color, but it means that you can only be treated, you can only be pushed around for so long until you either fight back or you possibly die. And there's only so much time that you have. Now, we have a lot of different isolated incidences where we are seeing white authority and black person in a kind of a violent, extreme case that leads to murder. So when we've been studying murder as citizens or scholars for a very long time, even all the way back to the crucifixion. Because if you look at the crucifixion, it was kind of seen as a murder. But you have to really look at the historical side of what the crucifixion was. The crucifixion, and we're talking about going back to Jesus, was a legal matter. Okay, we're talking about a legal matter. Okay, it was decided upon certain people that this person, okay, should be crucified in a legal way. It was done in a legal matter. So there were judges, there was things that were signed, there was a hand that was washed by, or his hands were washed. I believe it was one of the Caesars, or I think Pontius Pilate was one of the head military officials. And once it was cast, there was a symbolic act of washing of the hands, which was of Pontius Pilate. And Jesus was sent to the hill and crucified on the hill of skulls. All of that, you have to remember, was a legal thing. He was crucified for two major reasons: for blasphemy, for calling himself God, and he was crucified for treason, for high treason, not bowing to the Roman officials, or not bowing to what they felt at the time was God. They didn't feel Jesus was God at that time, but they felt that he should bow to them, and he just couldn't do that. So that was seen as treason. Because of treason, because he could not follow the order of the Romans, then he went to the hill. Also, he called himself God because he said, well, you say that I am, right? That was an answer as, okay, positive, he's saying that he's God. So they said Jesus is guilty. We're going to take legal matters, and the crucifixion was a legal thing. Okay, it was done as perfectly legal. The Romans saw this as just, legal. Paperwork was filed, legal. Right? It was a legal thing, legal. Now, when Christians go back and look at it, there is talk of murder, right? There is talk of murder in the fact that, oh, that's nice. And the fact that it was a this innocent person, or what people call, well, many Christians call a perfect. He was perfect. So how could he possibly be tried under these legal terms and to be crucified when he was, for one thing, the Son of God, and another thing, he was not guilty. He can't be guilty, but he took on sin to be crucified. So he took on all of the world's sin and purified that through mankind by taking on that wrath of God and becoming sin and then moving on. So you have to realize a Christian, when a Christian, a so-called Christian, begins to take someone into court and begins to file legal matters, they're going to have 100,000 reasons why it's just under the Bible. That's the first thing you're going to do. But you have to realize, as a Christian, that when they tried Christ, they had all this legal stuff that they found in their Bible, right? Their law books and their Bible, their word of God at that time, to just crucify the crap out of this God, right? So you have to realize that as a Christian, when you go forth, you are going forth on the side of the enemy to take them to court. And that goes for anybody. So can a Christian sue? Well, that's something that you have to pray to your God about. Can I sue as a Christian? The answer is absolutely not. You can't. Because when you sue, you have lost all hope in forgiveness. And what they'll say is, I turn it over to God and let God... Nah, that's not how God is seeing you. So you will be held accountable now. You will also be held accountable in the afterlife. It says God is watching every single action you make when you choose to follow the laws of the enemy and go with legal matters. And John Bunyan, who wrote the first big Christian novel of Pilgrim's Progress, has brought about legality. And the Protestant Reformation has to look at what they think legality is, and it is the easy way. It is not the way of Christ. The way of Jesus Christ is forgiveness, and that is his way. We don't even really say it's his law, it's his lifeblood. Forgiveness is what he represents. And how can you walk into a courtroom with forgiveness in your heart? Many times the Christians have put people in stocks. Many times people have that are called themselves Christian have hung people from trees, calling them witches and all this other stuff. Many times have they crushed them with rocks. And this is all in history. And do we go back and say that these people were Christians? Do Christians have the right to kill? Now that has to be reviewed, right? So legality is something that a Christian doesn't go to. A Christian goes to the foot of the cross of Christ and becomes forgiveness with him.